Hello. Today I want to talk about how to prove that somebody in your family died from an epidemic. I had a project recently for a client where they wanted me to prove the cause of death in a time when causes of death were not recorded and there weren't death certificates or death registers for that area. So there are some other ways that you can try to conclude if it was an epidemic. You can search newspapers from that era and area, and you can look in town and county histories. They might mention especially bad epidemics that came through of certain diseases. Another thing would be to look at Find a Grave for that area and do a search of approximate death years. Typically I do 1 year on either side of the person who died. And if you see an especially large amount of deaths in that area and time period, then it might have been an epidemic. For example, my second great-grandmother was Andrina Evensdatter Lund. She was from Norway, and she married Hans Paulsen in Oslo in 1874. They immigrated to the US in 1884, and then she died in 1897 at the age of 49. And this is the only photo I have of her because they were very poor and they did not have a lot of studio portraits done. She died of black diphtheria, and that is not probably the technical modern term for it, but it went through that area. Sorry, I keep saying era instead of area, but it went through their area in Dakota Territory, South Dakota. Hudson, South Dakota was the town. And I went and looked at all of the Find a Grave entries for that area. And there were a lot of deaths in 1896, 1897, when she and 3 of her children died. Her daughter, Olga, was 20 and died from it. And daughter Jenny was 11 and died from it. And daughter Berthina was 1 year old and died from it too. So there were a lot of newspaper accounts for that time period and that place that listed this black diphtheria. There were also some church records that discussed it too. It was such a huge deal that recently when I went to Hudson, South Dakota and talked to somebody in the church that my family helped found, she remembered hearing her grandparents talk about this epidemic that went through the area. So just look at all clues that you can find and see if you can narrow down a likely cause of death if it might have been from an epidemic of some sort. Thanks.